Hello everyone, and welcome to the Cancer Guidepost of Strength first inaugural summit. My name is Michael Hayworth, and I want to thank you personally from the bottom of my heart as a co-survivor for coming to this event. My interaction with Cancer Guidepost of Strength started with the man I'm about to introduce, who, when my brother Chuck, who will be coming up later on in the event, was dying of cancer, or what I thought was dying of cancer. The reason why I'm wearing these somewhat gaudy orange shoes, they stick out in a crowd, but the art world has what is called provenance. You see, these shoes, when Charles was in his hospital bed, were the only shoes that he picked up, the first shoes that he picked up when we were rushing him to the hospital. Now, he made me promise him that if I ever walked the red carpet or did anything along the lines of anything glamorous, I would wear these orange Chucks. Well, cut to 19 years later, I have been on the red carpet of the Oscars, the Emmys, the Golden Globes, pretty much every award show I could imagine, but always, I am always wearing these neon orange Chucks. They make quite a conversation starter. We have an exciting show for you, and I want to introduce the man of the hour who will be playing Master of Ceremonies. Ladies and gentlemen, please put a round of applause together for Dr. Bernard Chinnasami.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. And thank you all for being here at our first annual summit. And very kind words, but most of us in the oncology worlds, Boris, you're one of them, who basically take care of our patients, always have this wonderful joy and experience of trying to take fear away from patients and their families as much. So several years ago, a family came to me and said, I would like you to do something nice for cancer patients. And my first response to them was, I do a lot of nice things for cancer patients, thank you very much, goodbye. That's what it seemed like at that time. But some people are persistent, and they kept pushing me and said, you have good ideas, what would you like to see? And we will fund you. So I said, let me think about it. And so what I then did was, I thought about my long experience with cancer patients and said, what would somebody want? I've taken care of CEOs, billionaires, custodians, you name it, I've taken care of them. And then I noticed the most common thing with all of them is, one is fear, but the second thing is loss of control. And that's one thing that people have had a really hard time giving up. You know, these people have run multi-billion-dollar companies, but suddenly the diagnosis of cancer takes away all that from them. They make very little decisions. In the medical community, we always think we are very patient-centric, but when we interview patients, they don't quite feel that way. Because it's that loss of control that makes them say, gosh, where am I going to be? Am I going to be okay? Is my family going to be okay? So I stepped back for a minute and thought about it and said, what can I relate to make that journey a little better? And then the word hit me, journey. Hey, a GPS works really well for me, especially when I don't know where I'm going. And so why don't we create a GPS for cancer patients, their friends, and their families? So that was the first part. The second part was, I didn't want medical people's opinions. I wanted patients' opinions and their families' opinions. So we went around interviewing several hundred people, actually, in terms of what did you like, what did you not like, what would you like it to be, what did you miss, and what would you like to be guided by? And so I got a lot of input there. And when we got that input, we then collated it into several categories. One part was easy information. Information that's actually understood by patients and their families. I think in the medical world, we get so comfortable with what we do, we sometimes forget that what we do is very, very different than what they see. And if you come to our tumor boards ever, you know, when the medical oncologists are doing their thing, even other doctors are extremely intimidated by it, and they really don't necessarily understand what we say. And so can you imagine what it feels like for a patient to have to hear that information? We have only that much time to spend with them. We spend it, we do the best we can, but then we move on, all right? The next thing is, so how do we make that useful to them? I had some very brilliant people in those panels tell me, I have a PhD. I can do anything you ask me to do, but when it's my cancer and I have to look at it, my brain short-circuited. I couldn't do it. I could do it for everybody else. I couldn't do it for me or my family. So it's not about intelligence. It's not about how somebody approaches things. It's at that moment, it's a life-altering experience. And that's across the board. It doesn't matter what your means are. It doesn't matter what your education is. That word cancer short-circuits everybody's brain. So having said that, how do we then make it palatable for people to get it? So the problem with search engines are it's overwhelming. So when we decided to build this GPS, I was looking for it to be like the Kleenex of tissues, something that people can go to, that it'll be extremely reliable, it'll be vetted by us, but it'll bring everything together. Medical institutions compete with each other. For example, if you went to MD Anderson, if you went to Memorial, all these great institutions, they have wonderful information, but in a way they weaponize that information, meaning you come here, you can have all this stuff, all right? So it's not an open source thing that everybody is able to easily access everybody else's information. And I think we achieved something rather unique. I got Wake, UNC, and Duke to all participate in my program. So it's not something they do very often, but they shot videos for me. You had different doctors cooperating with the different cancers. And what I did essentially was I chased who I thought communicated really well with people. And I asked them to shoot a video for me where it is understood by the patient. In fact, I had a lot of really good technical videos, but they really did not fulfill what I needed the patient's need to be met with, meaning easily understandable information. And so as we kept doing this, it got better and better. And this was new to me. And so as we did this, we got better and better information. The video series is not complete by any means. I'll be hitting you up, Boris, later to do one for me. But the long and short end of it is, it was to give the people the information. So how do I look at them using this information? As soon as you have cancer, we try to get people in as soon as possible. But it can take a week, maybe more, to be seen. And so imagine the anxiety of somebody being diagnosed and waiting to come and see us. So what happens then is that they try to look up all the information they can and try to do it the best they can. But it is overwhelming. That's what I'm told by every one of them. So what we did when we did these videos is we asked people, you have a diagnosis, just go and look at the video. It's a very gentle video. It's not designed to replace a consultation with a doctor, but it's designed to give you information that you have the tools when you go and meet the doctor, that the meeting would actually be meaningful. And then you go meet with your medical oncologist and your other oncology team, and then you come back and look at the same thing again. So it makes much more sense. And patients actually came up with even better ideas than that. They said, after we see the doctor, we get 50 phone calls from our family. Everybody wants to know, what did the doctor tell you? And we really don't want to talk about it. So they've been directing them to the videos. So it's a thing that slowly is gradually evolving into a very user-friendly information. It is not designed to replace your visitation with your doctor. It is designed to augment your understanding of what you're going to be doing before you see your doctor. So the information part was a very big part of this. The secondary part was a mentorship program. And essentially, if anybody was trying to get fit, they would love to have a personal trainer. And anybody who can afford one usually tries to get one. So the question becomes, how do we do this then for patients? So we recruited other patients who have been through the journey already and took them to guide our patients so we would match them up. Think of it like a match.com. A lung cancer patient with another lung cancer patient who's sort of getting similar treatments to try to get them through. As our database gets bigger, I expect to make it a lot more sophisticated in terms of demographics and all that, which would make a difference to patients to be able to get a paired-up mentor. The next thing I learned from the patients were, gosh, it's not just the patient who needs a mentor. Family members are having a hard time coping with this. So then we developed a mentorship program for our co-survivors, as we call them, for the family members. And so this has gradually evolved and gone on and on and on. And so it's been a very, very successful program. The next part of this comes up with patients are living a lot longer now. Like, you'll have a lot of people tell me, guys, there seems to be cancer everywhere. The good news is it seems like that, not just because the incidence of cancers are up, because it's really not, but patients are living a lot longer. So the prevalence of the disease has increased tremendously. So it seems like there's a lot more cancer there than there used to be. The treatments have got a lot more sophisticated too, but people are living with cancer. So as I talk to my patients and their family members, nobody wants to be known as a survivor forever. It's like, I've had this 25 years, I'm not a survivor, I've moved on. Cancer does not define them. It is one part of their journey. And so people wish to move forward, and you'll see a lot of people coming and talking today. If they didn't tell you they had cancer, you would never know it. They're extremely successful in their ways of life, extremely successful in helping other people. So survivorship is a big deal, because almost everyone here will know somebody or have a family member or friend who's been touched by cancer. So the prevalence of this is in all our lives, and nobody wants to be known as a patient. They are all people. They are people who want to be known as people. Sure, they had an interruption or a hiccup in their life with cancer, or for their families, but they want to move on. And the example I'll give you is, when we see a lot of patients, sometimes family members are so eager to learn, well, how long are they going to live? And it's very rare that the patient ever asks this, actually. It's usually by family members. And so I thought about, everybody in this room is going to die at some time. Simple and straightforward as that. You're born, you're going to die. So imagine if the average life expectancy for a man is a little over 70 years. And at the 1-year-old party of your child, you say, oh, you got 74 more to go. Just imagine what a dampener that would be on that party, because you're addressing the mortality instead of their life. So when you look at this, your mortality is part of you. Life wouldn't be worth living if there was no such thing as death, right? So the whole thing is, think about the moment, live in the moment, and what are you going to do with your life? This is not about how long do I have. You could have cancer and get run over by a car, even if you had the greatest prognosis in the world. So life is very precious, right? But if all we focus on is death, then we don't have time to live. So part of survivorship is to teach people as to how they can go ahead and get these things going together and kind of make life for themselves. A lot of patients have told me life has become a lot more precious since they had a diagnosis of cancer. They also remind me that cancer never comes at a convenient time. There is no good time for cancer to come. And a lot of you in this audience know that, because that's just the way it is. It interrupts your life. It's brutal. And so the main part about this, and why I put this get-together, is I wanted to bring people together, the doctors, the nurses, the patients, the co-survivors, business leaders, and all of us need to play in this sandbox together, because the only way we move forward with something like this is for us all to kind of be able to respect each other's part in this. The newest thing GPS has tried to do recently is move more global. In America, we are extremely fortunate to have a lot of resources. But in other countries, this is not necessarily the case. So as we did a global expansion, and that's the beautiful thing about videos, it can be seen anywhere. The good news is Cancer GPS has been accessed in over 190 countries. So we have never tried to advertise it. We've never tried to do anything like that. I'm not a tech person at all. Anybody who knows me will tell you that. So one of my people come and tell me, do you know your program has gone into all these countries. I said, really? I said, okay, what does that mean? It just means that even people in Syria access cancer GPS. I mean, it's one of the biggest human calamities of our time. But cancer shakes people up so much that they want to have information. I know nothing about marketing. When people want something, they will find you. It's as simple and straightforward as that. And so as we move forward, the beautiful thing about programs like this is it's easy to share with the world. It's not something we need to hide and keep in High Point, right? And High Point has done many amazing things for a first. For example, Hatteras Yachts started in High Point, a landlocked place that actually gave birth to one of the biggest yachting companies in the world. So our furniture market, High Point has many firsts. So I wish to make Cancer GPS one of those things that we start here, but I wish for us to take it everywhere, meaning this is something we should all share. This is nothing, it only gets stronger when we share it, right? So as we move forward, I'd like us all to consider what our parts in this can be. How can we get other people to come and play in the sandbox with us? As the speakers keep coming forward, you'll see this is really not about chemotherapy or radiation therapy. It's extremely eclectic. We have a speaker group that will make you feel that, gosh, there's a lot more to this than I thought. And I'm even talking about all your seasoned nurses back there. There's a lot of this that we can do to change our lives. But more importantly, change the people's lives around us who have been touched by this disease. And so all I would like to say is my goal is so that we try to make fear less for people. Live in the moment, right? Recognize that anybody around us can be a cancer survivor. You would never know it because we need to get beyond surviving and get a pathway to thriving. That's my goal for this conference, and I appreciate you guys coming here, and I'll take any questions from you all. Boy, that's an awful quiet group, but I know almost everybody in this group. Yes?
Do you have the faith community involved in this?
Yes. Actually, we have something called Spiritual Journey, because people diagnosed with cancer, even people who fell off the faith, suddenly their mortality brings them face to face with God very quickly. And so it's one of these things the patients have told us. So what we did was we sent a questionnaire out to all our patients and said, what questions do you have to answer? And it's funny, but it came down to 9 questions. All the faiths, no matter which faith they were, it was certain groups of questions that came about. So at that time, I got Father Vince, who was our parish priest at that time, to say, how do you answer all these questions to these patients? And so we made a video of that, but then we also sent it to a rabbi. Elon was kind enough to get me that. Then we had a Protestant minister talk about it. So this affects everybody equally brutally. So we want them to be comfortable with their faith, have the questions answered. The reason we did it online is our patients told us, I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and that's all I could think about. So it's nice to go to a site and peruse and see what your faith is and say, hey, were some of these questions answered? And it may not give you all the answers, but it'll be a good starting point. And that's why we have Father Pete here today to talk about that as well. Thank you for coming.